For the colonists, it was clear from the start they needed to produce alcohol locally. In colonial homes, beer and cider accompanied most meals. Even children shared the dinner beer. Such mealtime practices made steady drinkers of most Americans, men, women, and children alike. Alcohol was known as the good creature of God, a blessing to bring cheer, relieve sorrow, and nurse the sick.
The multiple cultures that came together to form the early Euro-American communities brought very heavy drinking cultures with them. So alcohol was integrated into almost every aspect of early American colonial history. So all the major interactions in terms of social interactions, what is really striking is the absolute pervasive presence of alcohol on the one hand, and the almost absence of the concept of alcoholism on the other hand. We don't have a concept of alcoholism at this point in time. The first warning sign culturally that we really had of this rising alcohol problem came from a very prominent American citizen, Dr. Benjamin Rush. He was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. He was probably what we would consider the first Surgeon General in the United States.
I think, in a nutshell, the understanding of who and what the alcoholic and their families are. And the philosophy, I guess, that was primary in our program was that if you treat a person as they are, they're going to stay as they are. But if you treat them as if they were what they could and should be, they become what they could and should be. And in pursuit of that, we had the understanding that people didn't need to be put down more, they needed to be helped up. If the family or the individual could sit there and look at that show and hear Dick Van Dyke talk about his disease and what he did, he went and got help and he recovered. Now life is good, and in fact we named the series "It's Great to Be Alive" because people are happier when they get through it. Then, through the help of frankly, growth organizations, primarily like Kello Television, who gave us the help in production and in giving us airtime, and KSY, KDLT, KXON, all of them, and then beyond, like I think it was 22 states, were happy to get these programs because they began to see that there was a need for it. So that was a big part of getting what we saw as a proven program of recovery known and motivating people to take advantage of it.
There are profound lessons from history that we can see in retrospect that we can't see in the present. What on earth were they thinking, prescribing 2 1/2 pounds of cocaine for the treatment of morphine addiction in the 1880s? And we could look back with incredible arrogance and condescension at what they were doing back there. But when you really study history, one of the things that comes is a profound sense of humility. Because what I know is it's very difficult to see harm in the name of help in one's own era.
Electroshock therapy may be recommended for other disorders.
Little is known about the causes of addiction and dependency. Therefore, little can be done to prevent or interrupt dependency by clinical means.
How will historians in 50 years judge what we're doing today in the name of addiction treatment?
For some, self-help group therapy is the best method.
Harm in the name of help. Do we have some of that going on in the current era? And it really says there's an ethical and moral responsibility for us to identify that as quickly as we can and eliminate the harm that can come from those practices.
Down in Leicester's methadone clinic, gotta be down for you to be. It may take you the rest of your days to get away from the warmth of an opiate haze. Down in Leicester's methadone clinic.
mindennaisiin. Hakoja, tehtyisillä, ohinja. Alla biobankrent sellaisiin.
You go to this hardware store and everybody knows who you are and says hello, and they ask about your kids. They all know your kids.
It depends on what you want out of life, but if you like the wide open spaces, friendly, honest people, this is it.
Where could you share your wealth of experience? Give back to a community. Find a sense of place, a purpose. Bennett County Community Health Center.
The last 5 years, you should have seen her face when I couldn't help but to scream. I will never let this say, how'd you do this to me, Sarah?
In the fall of 2005, Scott began services with Southeastern. Scott was displaying aggressive behavior at school and at home. His outbursts happened when he perceived that he had been wrong. Scott was in need of a more structured environment than the public school could offer him. When he began services, he had one-on-one staff because of his behavioral outbursts. Scott worked on academics in the classroom to help him get back to grade level, which he was not at due to his behavioral concerns. Through speech services, individual counseling, and one-on-one staffing, Scott started to turn things around for the better.
He informed us that we had to rip tickets, that this was an obligation of having movie companies send their movies to us. So,
he had nothing to gain from it. He maybe lose customers by us, but he was really helpful.
Probably what prompted most of this was getting these seats. The seats basically were donated. Jeff Logan, the owner of the theater in Mitchell, steered us onto these, and so all we had to do was go and get them.
The first time I remember going to a movie was seeing Walt Disney's The Shaggy Dog. And I went with my parents because they were scouting it out, and I remember them saying, "My goodness, they're getting 55 cents for adults now," and just amazed that you could get that high a ticket price. The manager of Fullerton Lumber Company said, "When are you going to pay for this bill? It's getting pretty big here." And the foreman said, "Well, I'm down there building the new theater for Nels Logan, and I don't get paid until it's built, and they have money coming in, so you got to keep charging this stuff to me so I can finish the job and get paid myself, and then I can pay you." The Fullerton manager reluctantly agreed to that. And so they kind of worked that con, but by the end of it, they had a $10,000 bill for materials. Of course, in 1933 dollars, would be well over 100,000 today.
As manufacturers and dealers, we've all heard the history, the accounts of the monumental news-making events that we were proud to be a part of. The remember when stories that inevitably get retold over and over again as part of our combined memories. Legends that carry forward with us from generations of employees and dealers who came before us. Those stories are events we take pride in because although we may not have been there personally, we're proud to be associated with the company. When it counts in the present, we are there. Every day, our products in relationship with our dealers, their producers, and ultimately in conjunction with end consumers are working on new and creative uses for aggregate products that make people's lives easier.
Well, you've got this stuff, it's just junk. It's difficult to deal with. You know, you can't drive over it or grade it out or anything. I mean, it's worthless. It's obviously needs to be gotten rid of. And if you can take that and turn it into something that you can use, you've done something good. Hopefully there's money in it, but even if there wasn't, you'd be doing something good for the world. You know, take something make something out of nothing.